Hey guys, project-zodiac here. I'm back with another video, and this is another movie review. And it's something I'm very excited for, but at the same time, I'm also like, yeah, a lot of people are gonna call me crazy for this, and a lot of people are gonna disagree with me on this. But this is a movie review that I've been wanting to do for a long time now, alongside two other movies. One in particular I've been meaning to do way more than this one and another one. Just haven't gotten around to doing it just yet. But this is my movie review for The Last Airbender, which is the live action adaptation for Avatar: The Last Airbender. And yeah, this is gonna be interesting. I have a lot to say about this movie, um, and just my own experience with the movie itself, not just the review with the movie, but my own experience with the movie itself, and also just my thoughts and concerns for the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action show, which releases on Netflix in a few days, which I'm so excited for. Because today is the 18th of February, so in just a few days, that show is finally out. But since I have so much to say, this is going to be a little bit longer of a video. That is also why I got my tripod out for this one. So I do apologize for how long this is going to be. I'm going to stick with my review first, then give my explanation on my experience with the movie, so that way I'm not jumping all over the place for those of you that just want to hear the review. And then I'm going to give my thoughts and expectations and, um, just what I'm thinking of with the live action show it's going to be. So let's just go straight into this. Right away, I'm just going to tell you guys this. This movie is overhated. It is not a bad movie. It is really tossed all over the place as one of the worst adaptations ever made. Uh, a lot of people just do not like this movie. They say it should have never been made, and that everything about it is terrible. And yeah, I mean, I think even the creators of the show didn't like the movie. I might be wrong on that. I don't know if they even watched it, honestly. I know that I think it's the producer of the live action show. I think he didn't watch the movie. I remember seeing an interview a few months ago about that. But yeah, the movie itself, The Last Airbender, is not as bad as people make it out to be. It really is not. Is it the best movie ever? Is it a cinematic masterpiece? Definitely not. No. But it's not a bad movie. It's enjoyable. It's fun, and it does a very good job at adapting the things it can adapt. And again, I know a lot of you are probably gonna be going like, "Have I watched the show?" Yes, I've watched the show. I've watched the show as it was airing. Not every episode, obviously, but most of them. And then Korra came out, watched Korra, but not all of it. And then a few years ago, I believe around 2016, 17, something like that, at the most 2018, I binged all of The Last Airbender and Korra back to back, which is obviously after the movie came out. But again, we'll talk about that later. But so yes, I have watched the show. This is not as good as the show. No, it's not. But as a movie, it's fine. It's good. It's decent. But that also doesn't mean that there's problems. So let's just get into the things I didn't like about this movie, because there is a lot. But I really want to talk about the good things that this movie has, because this movie does have good things, and people just like to bash on it and not see the good things about it. But before we get into the good things, let's just get the bad stuff out of the way. The name pronunciations are terrible. I remember, M. Night Shyamalan, the director of the movie, who's also the writer of the script and the producer of the movie. He really wanted to make this movie great. But he butchered the names, and I remember in interviews he was saying it was for cultural appropriation for the names. Don't know how true that is. Um, but yeah, a lot of the names are wrong. Like for example, instead of saying avatar, they say avatar. Instead of Aang, they say Ong. Instead of Sokka, they say Suka. Um, And so like yeah, they butchered a lot of the names. And it made no sense. And then some names they left it as it is. So I don't know. So the names are bad. Um, the the big change of the Fire Nation not being able to bend fire from like their bodies, they need a fire source. That's a big change. But at the same time, it makes sense because all of the other elements need their elemental thing as a source in order to bend it. You can kind of say that air doesn't, but at the same time, there's air everywhere. So, you know, air is a little bit tricky. But so a lot of people didn't like that they needed a source of fire to bend the fire because of the fact that in the show that's what makes them a big threat. They don't need a source of fire. They could just light fire. Um, and yeah, that is true. And it is also a good contrast with the airbending because airbending technically doesn't need a source around it because the source is everywhere. But at the same time, it just makes more sense. So I can't really be mad with them about that, especially because that actually works in their favor with how they handle the comet, which I'll talk about later when I'm talking about the good things. But the problem here is that they kind of made it so that like if you are in extreme emotional state or extreme master of firebending, you can make fire out of nothing, which didn't make sense in the way that they explained it, but that was just in one scene, and then they kind of explain it later on with the comment. Again, we'll get to that in a minute. Point is, needing a source of fire is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. And then the other thing that I really did not like was okay, so before I even like move on with this, I literally just finished rewatching the movie. Literally like 10 minutes ago. So this is all very, very fresh. I mean, I didn't need to rewatch it. I do remember it pretty well because I've always liked the movie ever since the movie came out. Um, but still, it's still very fresh because I literally rewatched it because I'm excited for the show and for this wanting to get it as fresh as I can for this review. And also just because I've been reading the Avatar comics. So again, just because I'm so excited for the show and I haven't really read those in between comics yet, other than now. So, but so I was actually I don't I when I originally watched it, I always felt like something was a little off with Katara. I didn't really realize it until now when I was watching it a few minutes ago that like Katara is fine, but yeah, in this movie, she's basically just the exposition device, and that's fine if it's handled well. And sometimes they do handle it well with Katara being the exposition device. However, most of the movie is Katara literally being very, very, very slow and very dumb, where she's asking all of these questions that literally she's given the answer to. She asks, and then the literally like next line is her asking the same question in a different way, and it's like you were just told this answer. A big example is with when Aang is taking them to the like after they meet Aang. Yeah, I'm gonna be saying the actual names, not the way that the movie makes it. He takes them to the air nomads temple, and then he's looking for Monk Yatso and all his friends, and he's like, yeah, the monks, Monk Yatso, he was like my teacher. I'm just looking for him. He's probably gonna jump out and scare me. Um, so he's explaining it to her, and she's like, you were from here? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, the monks, blah blah blah. And then literally like two lines later, she's like, your friends were the monks? And it's like, Katara, he just told you that that he was his teacher is a monk, and like he just told you that he is from the air temple. What do you mean your friends are the monks? I mean, I get like not realizing a couple of things and like sometimes just saying stuff like that because I do things like that all the time, but the way that they make Katara in this movie is really, really bad. because literally it's like she just does not understand or realize anything that the person says, and then she's like, wait, is this right? Or just straight out like things that she should know she does not know. For example, talking about the Avatar. When the Fire Nation comes and gets Aang, her grandma talks with her about the Avatar, and she's like, okay, so what is the Avatar? It's like, how do you not know this? You live in this world. You grew up with the stories. How do you not know what the Avatar is? So that is my one of my biggest complaints, is that they handled Katara mostly bad. And then another complaint is um basically they took out a lot of the humor from the show. And this is kind of like with the firebending thing, it works and it doesn't at the same time. They took out a lot of humor from the show, and there's only a few snippets of humor here, and you know, a little bit from Momo, a little bit from Sokka, a little bit from Aang, uh, but there isn't too much humor, and they took that off. But at the same time, it works because they're going in a more realistic nature with the show. Sorry, with the movie, and since they had to literally condense the entire first season into this 1 hour and 40-minute movie, um, they did need to leave out a lot. So I think that they did the right choice in making it a little bit more grounded, leaving out some of the jokes, letting it be more focused on what they're going towards. We'll get to that in like 2 points though, because that's another issue. Um, but yeah, so they could have still added a few hints here or there of um, the the humor, and it just didn't have that. Um, and again, that's fine because they wanted to be grounded, but they could have had a little bit more humor in it for sure. But again, I didn't mind it so much, and again, I'll talk about that with the good points as well. The next thing is, okay, I get it. M. Night Shyamalan wanted to represent his culture in the movie. That is fine. But he literally changed the entire Fire Nation to be his culture. Um, and in the show, the Fire Nation are not. They're I think based in China. I think the Fire Nation. Like each of the nations are based on a particular region of the world, but I could be wrong, so I do apologize if I am. I think M. Night Shyamalan might be from India. I could be wrong, or at least his heritage could be from India, not him specifically, but at least his heritage. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. So again, I did not look this up. I'm just saying I think that that's where it's from. Wherever he's from, he basically wanted to represent the culture, and that's fine. So he cast a lot of people from that particular culture. And honestly, a lot of the actors did a really, really good job. We'll get to that soon. But the Fire Lord does not look like the Fire Lord at all. No, he doesn't. General Zhao does not look like General Zhao at all. Sorry, what's his name? Uncle Iroh does not look like Uncle Iroh at all. Zuko does not look like Zuko at all. We will get to Uncle Iroh and Zuko in the good things, but the point is they don't look like them. And I'm a little bit picky when it comes towards adapting source things. I think that if you're going to be adapting something and the original creator of that particular thing is not involved in the adaptation, you should do what you can to make sure that the cultures and ethnicities and dialect and everything is represented as it is in the original version. Like, sorry, like, yes, you can do a couple of alterations here and there, but you should be, like, in terms of that character, if that character is Asian, let him be Asian in the adaptation. If he's American, let him be American. If he's Japanese, let him be Japanese. If he's Italian, let him be Italian. If he's Brazilian, let him be Brazilian. Whatever it is, I think that they should adapt it as it is. Like if the person has blonde hair, let them try to have blonde hair. You know, things like that. it's just because it's a better like mirror of the show or whatever the adaptation is. And they didn't really do that with this movie, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what but now if the creators of that show or that story is involved in the adaptation and they decide, all right, I want to go and change this for this particular reason, then that's fine. Me and my friends were actually just talking about the Percy Jackson adaptations, how they switched Annabeth's character. If Rick Rodian, I think is his last name, I forgot, the author of the books, if the author of the books was not involved on the Disney Plus show, I would have been like, you guys did not need to change Annabeth's, like ethnicity. You really didn't. But because it's the creator of the books, like the actual author, he is involved heavily with the show. It was his choice, from what I understand, to change Annabeth's ethnicity. Then I was like, well, it's the creator of the series' choice. It's what he wants, so I can't argue with that. It's his adaptation of his own series. So since he's approving of it, then I'm totally fine with that. But again, if he wasn't, then that would be like, what was the need of the change, you know? So that's what I'm trying to explain here. So I really do not think there was a need to change the ethnicities of basically everyone. So that was another issue. And then I'm trying to remember that point I said we would get back to in a minute. Let me try to remember this 1 second. Okay, I'm not really remembering that second point just yet. Again, my mind, as I'm like talking, I'm trying to go like to like this point, this point, this point, this point. So when I said I was gonna get back to that in 2 points, a bunch of other points just came in the way. So moving on, hopefully I'll remember it. There was this section in terms of the bending. So in terms of the bending itself, hold on, am I remembering this now? The jokes. So I'm trying to remember. No, yeah, I discussed everything I needed to about the jokes. Could have just been more. But going into what I was saying just now, so the bending. There are elements within the bending where it's really, really good, but then there are a few moments where it's like they do all these fancy moves and nothing is happening, and then there's like a long delay before the bending actually comes. So for example, like there are a few moments where there's water benders and then they do these, martial arts move, and then they finish the moves, and then it's when the water like starts come, as opposed to it being with the movement, because the whole thing with the show is the martial arts, like they'll move and bend their body, and the element will bend as well in real time for the most part. Like there's a slight delay basically. But again, there were many moments like that, and it just seemed a little forced, a little bland. However, there is one part in particular, and I remember even when I saw this in the movie theater when it originally released, I remember, and I'm like, okay, no, that's kind of bad. Why did, I don't know, that needed a lot more work. I'm talking about specifically the earthbending camp freedom scene. Um, it's when Aang first reveals to everyone that he's the Avatar. Um, yeah, it took, and I counted, it took 6 earthbenders to move a boulder that's like this long and like this tall. 6 to move that, and then a 7th one to do something and to make that explode into pebbles and hit other people. So it took 7 earthbenders to move something this big, which makes no sense at all. And the worst part about it is they do all these cool like movements and stuff, and you're expecting them like, oh crap, they're gonna do something really massive, like a huge wall of earth is just gonna be coming, and they do all those movements, and then you just see this pebble, this small little pebble. Again, it's not really a pebble. It's that dimension that I said, but like this, just this rock, gently moving. It's not even going fast. It's just gently moving, and you're just like, what were you guys thinking? Like, did they run out of budget in the moment that they were making that particular moment? Um, but yeah, so that was embarrassing. Just like even watching with people, you're just like, really? Um, and then yeah. So, and the worst part about it as well is it's like I was talking about the delays. They do all these fancy things, and then they like punch, and then it starts to move by itself. So there's like a good like 2 second delay before it even like starts moving so slowly, and then the seventh one comes, does like a punch in the air, and then it like explodes. But yeah, that scene is terrible. That is very very bad. But yeah, in terms of other bad things about it, I mean, a lot of people didn't like Appa's face. They said that Appa looked horrible. Appa didn't look that bad. Yes, his face is a little pushed in, a little bit more than people would have liked, and a little bit darker as well. But it's not bad. Um, Momo, I think I was gonna talk about Momo. Yeah, Momo is kind of just there. He doesn't really do Momo stuff other than like going in and getting the scroll and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so they didn't really do a lot of Momo stuff. And now I remember the thing that I was gonna come back to. So thank God I remember that. So thank you for Momo for reminding me. So yes, basically they had to condense the entire book one, Water, into a 1 hour and 40 minute movie. So they left out so much stuff. There's no Kyoshi warriors. There's no did they go to the library in book one? I don't think they did. It's been a little while. It hasn't been that long since I watched it, but yeah, I don't think they went to the library. I think that was in book two. But yeah, so there's no Kyoshi warriors. There's no whole plot of Aang trying to connect with all of the avatars. There's no plot about him having a lot of these crises. Um, and like even in the water, I'm remembering this the most when they reach the northern water. Why do I want to say temple? um, Tribe. There's no whole context about Aang's trainer being Katara's somewhat grandpa. Because I know like he was in love with Katara's grandma, and then became like a parent figure to Katara. In the show, yeah, there's none of that here. There's none of the whole discrimination against girls waterbending and guys waterbending, which really needed to be in there. So that's one of the biggest issues, is that they had to condense all of these. Wait, was that discrimination? Is that the right word? Would that be sexism? I think sexism. Speaking of sexism, Sokka sexism is not even really present here at all. Like it's not. It just doesn't exist in this movie. We'll talk about that when we talk about the show, the live action show. But yeah, so yeah, there's just none of that here. I mean, again, they had to condense so much into just an hour and 40 minutes, and you can tell in some of the editing, like things were like, okay, you needed to change that, or something feels like it was cut out of here that really would have been important. But for the basics, oh yeah, and another thing that I did not like was they did not have Avatar Roku at all. They had his dragon, and yeah, I mean, I liked the dragon, but I never really understood why they didn't have Avatar Roku involved in this at all, because I think that would have been really, really good. And also, just in general, a lot of the dialogue felt like it was just because of that whole like condensing thing. It felt like it had to, like, a lot of it was just exposition dumping. And again, that's fine when it's done naturally. A lot of the things here are not done naturally. For example, when Aang is gonna meditate with the moon and water spirit. Is it the moon and water spirit? I forgot. The koi fish in the pond, in the Northern Water tribe. They they're there, and then he's about to go meditate, and out of nowhere he's like, "Do you know how airbenders get our tattoos? It's because we have to meditate a very very long time without interruptions. Some of us can even meditate for 4 days." He literally just says this out of nowhere, and you start thinking like, okay, so where's this going, Yang? And that's it. He doesn't say anything else. He sits down, starts meditating, and you're just like, okay, so what was the point of that? So, so that's some of the exposition dumps that I'm talking about, where it just comes out of nowhere, and you're like, what is the point of that? Also, that is not how airbenders get their tattoos. They have to be a master of airbending and of the customs of the air nomads. So they changed that. Um, but yeah, so that's basically what I'm trying to say. Another example of just random exposition dumping is a lot of times they will just be talking, and then out of nowhere you're just like, oh yeah, this is the avatar. The He will be reborn again, and you're like, okay. And then literally like 2 seconds later, it's the avatar. He's gonna be reborn if you kill him. Don't kill him. It's like, yes, but you just said that the previous scene. Why are you saying it again as if we didn't pay attention the first time? And a lot of times, yes, this particular example is with General Zhao, when he has Aang captured. But and I guess you can kind of excuse it because at one point he was just talking to Aang like, oh, if we kill you now, you're gonna be reincarnated. And then a few minutes later he says, don't kill him because he's gonna be reincarnated. This was literally like 8 minutes later, not even 8 minutes, like 5-8 minutes at the most. And but he says that to all the people around him, which it makes sense. So, but it's the fact that he says that back to back, and then literally just right before Aang gets captured, this guy shows Aang all the Avatar statues, and he's like, "Oh, all of these were you in your past lives." So we already had that establishment that the Avatar reincarnates, but then they just drop it literally like 5 minutes from each other, like 3 times. It's like, why? So that's what I'm saying. They just dump a lot of exposition. But the first time that we hear that the Avatar reincarnates, which is when Aang goes and sees all the statues, that was a natural exposition dump, where the guy's like, yeah, these were all of you in your past lives. These are just the statues of all previous avatars. Like, that's fine. That gets the exposition across. That gets the explanation across. So there are many moments where the exposition is super forced and super repetitive. Like, you just said this literally 5 minutes ago, and now you're saying it again, and then 5 minutes later you say it again. And then other times the exposition is done normal. A very good example of a somewhat good, somewhat bad exposition dump is when General Iroh is General Iroh, wow, Uncle Iroh is talking with Zuko about staying in that little village that they're in, that there's a bunch of pretty girls for Zuko to settle down with, and for him to just forget about hunting the Avatar. I actually like that scene, because Zuko is like, all right, you know what? Let me remind you why I can't do that right now. He calls this kid over and he starts saying like, hey, what do you know about the Prince of the Fire Lord? And then the kid goes into the exposition, but then Zuko cuts him off, gives him the exposition or part of the exposition, and then lets the kid continue. And that's kind of one of the things where I'm like, okay, so you're giving us this exposition. That's good. It's being given in a natural way. You're trying to make a point to your uncle so that the audience can understand why you are in the situation you are. Great. But where are you going with this? So the point that they were trying to get with that is that Zuko is basically trying to tell Uncle Iroh, it's because of my honor, of what I did to my dad, that I cannot stop until the Avatar is captured. That's basically what he was trying to say, but he just kind of does not continue the explanation. He gives the exposition, which was given in a natural way, but then literally just says, "I will not stop until the avatar is captured, and then I can think about the pretty girls." That's literally what he says. And again, I like that because in your mind you can see that he wants to do things normally. Like he wants to let go of this anger. He wants to have his honor and then focus on just regular guy stuff, like looking for a girlfriend. Um, but that he is so focused on getting back his honor, making his dad proud, that he doesn't even want to think about that. So that's why I like that scene. But it's just the way that the exposition was not concluded. So like they gave the exposition, but it's just not. It's just not like it's just there. Like you can think about it, you get the point, but we're not gonna finish what we're trying to say here. We're just giving you the exposition. You guys can figure out the rest on your own. That's what I mean. It's just kind of forced in that way. But yeah, those really are the only bad things I had about the movie. You know, I mean, I know I've been talking about it for like 20 minutes already, um, but really it's not as bad as people think, because then we have the good things. And there's actually a lot of good things in this particular movie. So I'm gonna just quickly pause it here because my camera is about to run out of space. So, but for you guys, it's gonna be literally in like 1 second now. I'm gonna continue and talking about all the good things. All right, so now let's go into the good things that this movie does, because again, there's a lot of good things. I'm gonna try to make it just quick points, just because this video is already 30 minutes long. So I have no idea how long it's gonna be, and I still have a lot to say. So, the costumes, the props, the set locations, the filming locations, the environments, the stage design, everything with the filmmaking element into it, like that I just explained, all of those, they're so good. Literally, the costumes are great. The vehicles, the designs, everything is so good. They actually look realistic. One thing that I love is Aang's actual costume, and like, it's upsetting that they went with a very more muted beige color instead of his colorful, vibrant thing. We'll get to that with my thoughts on how the live action show will be, but they actually at least went out of their way to, like, even though he doesn't wear it often, because his base costume is just robes. It's just like a tight robe. It's not very loose or anything like that. But it's missing like the little like circle thing that goes around his top over here um, from the show, and it's missing a couple of different colors, like the orange and beige. Instead of orange and beige, it's just orange with a red sash in the middle. Oh, sorry, not orange. It's beige with a red sash in the middle. So it looks very muted and bland like that, but it looks realistic. It looks worn. It looks like it's something that would have been used. And then when you see, like Monkey Atso, Monkey Atso has the vibrant colors, so it's there. It's not that it's not. It's just Aang doesn't use that outfit, but we know that the monks did. So I thought that was nice, and that his hood, they did try to keep that like circle thingy around the waist, not the waist, the shoulders I'm trying to talk about. So they try to implement elements of it in a way that feels natural, and I really like that. So everything about that, like the set design and everything, the props, the costumes, um, the filming locations that they picked, it's so beautiful. So they did a very, 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 very good job in that. The filmography itself is also really, the film is filmed really beautifully too. A lot of people complained like there's just so much extreme close-ups on the faces, and yeah, there kind of is, but it's like, it's whatever. Everything else about the film is really, really beautifully shot. I don't think it's a bad filming like film in a bad film in the film. That's what I'm trying to say. It was edited pretty good, other than, you can tell a lot was cut off and rushed, so it just keeps going over and over again. um Actually, real quick, right before I continue, yes, there are lots of things about the movie that does seem very, very bland and lifeless and dull. Even when I was little watching it in the theaters, I kind of thought the same thing. It's like, oh, this is kind of like, I don't think my parents are liking this at all. I think they're just like, why are we here? This is really dull and kind of bland and heartless. So that that is something I should have said earlier, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about that with my experience with the movie itself. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a charm to it. So again, filming is great. The set designs are great. All of that is great. I'm not going to be repeating those. I also really, really like how they designed Aang's tattoos. I think the only complaint I had is like the tattoos going up here on the back of his arm doesn't connect to his spine tattoo. They're just literally like it just gets here and then it's just like a square and then it just goes down. So I wish that they would have extended it back, but I love that like in the back when you see him coming up for the first time, it's like a cross, and I thought that that was beautifully done. And even like the arrow over here on his forehead, I just loved it. Comparing it to how it is in the show, the animated show, and how it looks like in the live action show, yeah, the one for the movie is definitely like the arrow is definitely like higher up, and it's also a lot like smaller. So I didn't like that, but I really like though the fact that like it has all of these different designs, like there's drawings all over it. It looks really, really beautiful. um and honestly it looks better than just a like a blue like whole tattoo, just a blue one. It does seem like that is a more realistic take on how that tattoo would look. um I just wish it was bluer because it's you can barely notice it in some shots, especially because the shaving aspect of Aang's head. You can see like the darker skin because of the shaving aspect. I don't know how to say it right now, but like the 5 o'clock shadow, I suppose you could say. I don't know, but of the head, um, it blends in way too much with that color. So when you're focusing it just here on his forehead, you can see it better because the skin is a lighter color than what the 5 o'clock shadow on his head looks like. But still, I wish that they made it a little bit more vibrant blue. We'll talk about that with the live action show in a minute. But yeah, but also like the characters themselves, I think they did a fantastic job. Like the actors, for the most part, I think they did a fantastic job with what they were given, and also with the tone and the direction that the movie was handling this. And they really capture Aang's grief and his reluctance to be the Avatar really, really well. I thought that they did that a fantastic job. Like that's something I liked even when I originally watched it. You can really tell that he's just got this like uncertainty about who he even is, and he just doesn't want to be there doing all of that. Again, it would have been better if they had the fun elements with it. A lot of people are even probably gonna complain like he didn't wake up out of the iceberg and just start saying, "Can you go penguin sliding with me?" and then just got up super hyper like he does in the show. And honestly, again, that's because the movie tries to go in a more realistic way. And like, even if Aang is super upbeat, because you do see moments in the movie where he is a little bit upbeat, like when he goes to the southern air temples. Um, and yeah, like you can see that there are elements of that there, but the way that the movie is filmed, paced, and edited and written, those moments don't really like stand out. And like I said, that was an issue, but it fits the tone of it because it is a serious thing. Like, yeah, this kid just woke up and he has no idea where he is. There's a girl and the guy next to him. They're confused. Why would he just randomly just go and say, "Would you go penguin sliding with me?" Even as a 12-year-old kid, it seems very strange that's, someone would say that. Um, so I always thought that that was random, even when I was little watching the show, that he would have acted that like that. But in the movie, you can tell like he's exhausted and he's just like, I don't know what just happened. I'm not good, and he just like passes out. Like he doesn't even say anything. That's the thing. Like that was done so well in this movie. So the movie really handles these more serious moments a lot better than what people make it out to be. Um, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's bland and lifeless." I mean, I even just said that, but that's the thing. When you take away the blandness and lifelessness of it, and you see this realistic seriousness of it, then you can understand. Like, I understand the direction that they're going because, yeah, this is something serious. This kid is running away. He has a lot on his mind. He's a little traumatized. He just woke up and he has no idea what's going on. And he's trying to be cheerful in some aspects, but he has so much on his mind because for him, he literally ran away just a few days ago. So he's not in the best mood. And then he finds out that everyone he loved is gone because he basically time traveled and did not realize it. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they handle that really well. They handle these heavy personal emotions really well. And then, for example, we have Sokka. That's probably like people might understand why Aang like has a few light-hearted moments. But what about Sokka? Because he really does not. And yes, that's true. But honestly, again, he is a older brother that is very protective and he wants to make sure everything is taken care of. He has one or two like funny moments. And he does loosen up towards the end of the movie when he's with Princess Yue. So that's the thing that they're trying to go with. It's him being focused on making sure things are correct because that was always his side. And even in the show, again, they could have focused on his quirkiness and his, dumb, funny moments, but they didn't. So, and that is upsetting, but it makes sense that he would be very focused and serious in trying to make sure everything is correct to protect his tribe, to protect his little sister and his friend. Um, so I don't mind the change that they did with Sokka. Zuko is Zuko. I think that Dave Patel did a fantastic job as Zuko. And I think that, like, even though he doesn't look like him at all, again, he's still got the mannerisms down. He still got that anger down. He probably has a little bit more anger than what the show Zuko has. Um, a lot of people complain that you could barely see like the burn mark, and it's like, well, yeah, but he got that burn mark like what 2 3 years ago. It would have been a little bit more healed by now, as opposed to it looking so raw. So we can kind of assume that the fight didn't leave such a heavy burn on his skin as it did in the show. Um, that's why he still has the burn, but you can't really tell. You can kind of tell it more like up here, like from right here to here, as opposed to like all the way up to his eye, like it is in the show. Um, so, but that's fine. It would have been better, but you can kind of just assume that in the movie they kind of had the fire going more this direction rather than this whole entire direction. So yeah, I didn't mind that too much. I do think it would have been better if it was a little bit brighter or stronger, but if you notice it, you do see that towards the upper part it is more burned. Um, and as for Uncle Iroh, dude's awesome. He's just so cool in this movie. He definitely got the mannerism down without the laid back nature of Uncle Iroh. He has the serious side of Uncle Iroh and the wisdom side of Uncle Iroh, but not the goofy laid back side that everyone loves. Um, I think even some of the words that he says is very reminiscent of how like the speech pattern that Uncle Iroh would speak in. Um, Again, he definitely does not look like Uncle Iroh at all, but he did a very good job as Uncle Iroh. He really did. That actor, I don't know his name, but he did a fantastic job as Uncle Iroh. Um, And the fact that he could fire Ben at will was interesting, and again we'll get to that pretty soon. Um, but yeah, he was pretty good. He was one of the best parts of the movie as well in terms of characters. Princess Yue, they picked the perfect person for Princess Yue in my opinion. She really looked like her. She really had the same mannerism down, I think, and they did a really good job. Um, I talked about the Fire Lord. I talked about General Zhao. Azula, you only see her for literally the last shot of the movie, and I mean, she's fine. You can tell that there's a craziness in her, just like in the show. So I mean, that's good, but um, that's all we get from it. The biggest thing though is, of course, and I talked about Aang, and sorry, I talked about Katara earlier. I think that she does a good job for the most part. I'm not trying to bash her when she's not being written to be super unaware of the things that's going on, or even the things that she says herself in the movie. Um, I think that when they handle those moments, it is good. Um, like the actress herself did a good job with the material. That's what I'm trying to say. So I don't have a problem with the actress. It's the material that they wrote her to be as. And I guess again, they're trying to please it to people who have no idea what the movie is about or the series is about. So they kind of need to have someone asking all the questions. But it could have been done in a very natural way, and it was not with Katara. So for some other moments, yes, it was, but for the most part, Katara, that was not done naturally. Again, if they wanted to, they could have used Katara, but they really needed to work on how that exposition with Katara works. But anyway, so the actress was fine. I liked her. She did a really good job. No real complaints other than that big one. But the main actor, the main guy, Aang, I think his name was Noah Ringer. Um, I I loved him. I think he was really, really, really good as Aang. You can tell that he was really doing his best, and honestly, the dude is a great actor. I mean, I remember a few years ago when I rewatched this. I think like 2 years ago, maybe. Before right now, I looked up to see if he was in anything else. I don't think he was, or if he was, it was like maybe one or two other smaller things. But yeah, I don't think he did any other movies after The Last Airbender. But he was really, really, really good as Aang. For me, he looked like Aang. He had the same big ears as Aang. I'm not talking bad about him, but Aang does have big ears. But yeah, his ears, you know, his ears look like Aang. Aang, for me, always kind of had like a little chubbiness on his cheeks, and the actor did too. Um, though I think that Aang seemed a little bit skinnier than the actor, but not really when I think about it. I guess maybe the face. Like I think that Aang in the show had a little bit of chubbiness, but not to the amount that the actor did, but still a little bit. So again, I think that they picked someone who really represented and captured Aang really well, and you could tell because, like I said, there are a few moments where you see Aang loosen up, where you see him wanting to have fun. Again, they're super super few, but they are there, and you can tell that that character is trying to portray Aang as best as he can, and he does a fantastic job. And honestly, that kind of goes down to him being a huge fan of the show. I remember, and I'm gonna talk about this more in my experience with the movie, but I remember like following the whole production and any news related to this movie that I could find. Like I would always be looking online for information about it. And I even saw like the audition tape originally that they released for Noah Ringer playing Aang. Like he shaved his head for the audition, and he did his own martial arts. He dressed as Aang for it too. Like he really liked the show, and that's how they decided to go with him. So that's the thing. Like this was like a dream come true, and I'm so happy for him that he got to do that, because he really did a fantastic job as Aang. I really think that if you compare him to the Aang for the live action show, I think that he fits Aang in terms of looks a little bit more. Um, Now, I don't know what ethnicity Aang is supposed to be in. Um, Considering he's a monk, it would make sense that he would be somewhere in Asia. So again, that would make more sense with the ethnicity they picked for the show, because the show seems to be more ethnicity correct, which I like, which I talked about a few minutes ago. But in terms of representation and looking like the character, as we see the character in the show, yeah, he looks like Aang. Um, so again, I really liked and think that he did a fantastic job as the character. Um, but yeah, and then the special effects, I thought that the special effects were very good. And I did mention that like the earthbending scene that I didn't like, and there are a few other scenes like that throughout. Um, but at the same time, like there are so many scenes where the bending goes with the person's movement and it looks fantastic. The fight scenes are amazing. The whole entire sequence of the blue spirit is amazing. Like I remember like watching Super Bowl trailers. I don't care about sports or anything like that, but and I didn't even watch the Super Bowl, but that was like the first time I heard about Super Bowl commercials for movie trailers, and I was so excited to see that commercial online. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I only just watched the trailer when it got posted online. Um, but yeah, when I saw that, I would like they hyped that scene up so much, and that scene was so cool. Like they deserve to hype that scene up so much. It was done really well. I also like the Blue Spirit's design. Like they changed it, they added a wig to it. It definitely looks very. I forgot the name for it, but Japanese theater inspired, because they'll have that huge long hair wig and then like a mask or a headband or something. So it definitely looked very Japanese inspired. Um, and yeah, overall, like they did a really good job with that scene, and not just that scene, but many other scenes as well, just like that. A lot of like tense moments. Um, the whole scene with Zuko fighting Aang after Zuko captures Aang, that was beautifully done as well. Right before Katara like freezes Zuko, um, and like the entire ending sequence with all of the like the Water Tribe and the Fire Nation fighting each other, I thought that that was done really well. Another complaint: they did not go with the giant water fish supernatural thing that they should have, like they did in the show. Instead, Aang just makes a giant wave, but still, um, the every all of the other fights was done really well. I really think that the movie was so good. They just needed to do a better job um, at getting a lot of the things in that they had to leave out. Um, and then we also have like some of the changes that they made. For example, the comet, Sozai's comet, is not coming in a year; it's coming in 3 years. And I never really realized this when I was little, and only really recently I realized this due to the controversy with the show, the live action show, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then I saw someone make a post about it, this particular thing that I'm going to talk about, and I'm like, oh, never realized that. Um, I thought that it was. I know that they talk about the show, sorry, the comet in the movie, and I always did hear them say, "Oh, in 3 years it's gonna come." But for some reason, I always skipped over the 3 years part. I always just thought the comet was gonna come soon. And then I watched it again just a few minutes ago, and it's like, oh yeah, he does say 3 years. So they kind of did that so that it gives time for the younger actors to grow, which makes sense for a movie standpoint or a live action standpoint. But yeah, so that is one thing, and that they really changed, and that goes into the whole firebending thing. So again, does it make sense that they need a fire source? Um, but then I guess some of them, if they're masters, don't need one, like Uncle Iroh. Which that scene is cool. It's a big show off scene, but then doesn't really go much of anywhere until he gets confronted by General Zhao again. But he doesn't do anything fancy. He just dispels the fire. But still, um, this particular moment where the Fire Lord is saying 3 years, then he explains that, you know, when the comet is coming, firebenders will be able to bend fire without a source of fire, without having to be a master at it. So it gets explained why firebending needs a source in the movie version of the story. So I like that because they took that into consideration and addressed it and did it in a way that makes sense. You got this giant ball of fire that's supposed to amplify the Fire Nation's powers. And that was the threat in the show as well, in the animated show. Like the comet was gonna come and the Fire Nation was gonna be almost unstoppable for a short amount of time. That's why they needed to beat the Fire Lord before so this comet came. But the fact that right now in this universe, the live action movie one, they need a source of fire for the most part to bend fire. And if that comet is coming, not only is it going to amplify their powers, but it's also going to make it so that all firebenders won't need a source of fire. So they're going to be stronger and they're going to be bending fire without a source for a short amount of time. That for me makes sense and really enhances the threat of them needing to be the Fire Lord in time. So I think that was handled really, really well, and I really like that change. So again, it's kind of dumb that they do need a fire source, but at the same time, it makes sense given all of the other elements need a source as well, and also given the fact that the comet is gonna give them this extra strength in order to be able to bend fire at will. So I don't know. I kind of just like it. Again, it's still kind of dumb that they need a source because the whole threat of the Fire Nation, why they were able to, take control of the nations, is in part because they have such a huge army, but also because they don't need a source in the show. So again, I get it, but at the same time, kind of different from everything else. It works this way. So again, I'm not so mad that they needed a source, especially because they explain it this way and gives it a little bit more of a threat. So I love that. I thought that was great. And yeah, just in general, everything else was done pretty well, and also the music. The music in this movie is fantastic. It's so good. That theme song is kind of iconic for me. It's just so well done. And honestly, it was just so cool to see these characters in live action doing all of these things, and seeing them bending stuff in real life. The bending itself, the effects for it, for the most part, looks really good. So I don't know. I think a lot of people just bash this movie way too much because it's done so well in so many aspects. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we can see care was put into it, but then it's like, yeah, but then you got everything else. But again, everything else doesn't mean that the movie is bad. Everything else doesn't mean that it's a horrible adaptation, because it's not a horrible adaptation. A couple things is kind of messed up and butchered, sure, and bad, but it's not a horrible adaptation. It's not a horrible movie. They do a lot of really, really cool things here, especially like the serious nature of the story. And because the story is serious, like, yes, you have a few goofy moments here and there. I mean, and a lot of goofy moments, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you got a 12-year-old dude who is literally not wanting to be the Avatar, is not being able to let go of the past, has this trauma, is going through all of these things, is not having a good time learning a new element, and on top of that, people want to kill him. So And he has this way of trying to stop the Fire Lord, which honestly, now that I'm thinking about, I don't think they really talk about that in the movie. Yeah, the movie is just kind of like, let's just get you to the North Pole, and we're gonna teach you waterbending, and let's try to just clear out people and start a revolution. That's literally it. There's no point about trying to beat the Fire Lord. But it is book one. I don't think that gets brought up until like book two. But yeah, so like the seriousness of it is handled really, really well. Like I love the scene where Aang is up at night trying to bend water, and um, he's just struggling so much, and you can see that there's like he has his eyes closed and he's just like focusing, and then um, like it shows like the river, and the river's like just instead of like being calm or moving, it's like just going like this. It's like it's getting really intense, and then Aang just starts panicking. He's like, okay, no, I can't do this. I gotta try to get help somewhere. And then he goes off and tries to connect with the spiritual world. Like it's just so good. There's so much stuff here that was handled really, really well, and people just bash on it just because the names are butchered, the ethnicities are all changed, and yeah, that's and like yeah, the exposition stuff really, but it's not that bad. Honestly, like it's a fun, enjoyable time. But then there are a few moments where it's kind of like dull and lifeless, like I said. But honestly, it's more of like, oh, it's a decent time. It was an okay movie. It was a fine movie. Um, it was cool to see them in live action. Let's see how the other movies go. That's how it kind of is. It's not like, wow, they did this so good. Like no, it was just like they did a pretty good, decent job adapting it with the material that they were given. Um, So yeah, I think that the movie is just overly criticized, butchered, and hated. It's not a bad movie. Like I said, it's a enjoyable movie. If you want to just see Avatar in live action, just put it on. It's not like it butchered the entire story because it didn't. A lot of the important things are still here. So I don't know. I like it. I like it. I'm not saying that to really just defend the movie. I just think it's overhated, and I grew up with the show. And I remember seeing the show like being announced and me being excited for it. I think I remember even seeing the first episode, like when it released, like the day it released. That's what I mean. Um, or maybe I missed it and watched it like a day after or something like that as a rerun. I don't remember. Could have been that actually, but yeah, no, like my entire life I grew up with the show. I mean, and the show means a lot to me. It's not something I think about all the time. I mean, there's other shows I think about way more than Avatar, but still, it's a show that I connect with a lot, that I enjoy a lot, and that I really, really have a lot of value and special care for a lot. Um, Especially because, I kind of relate a lot to Aang and Korra. For those of you wondering, I actually prefer the Legend of Korra, especially after I watched them back to back in full. Um, but that's for a different conversation. Doesn't mean that I don't like the Last Airbender. I love the Last Airbender, but the Legend of Korra I think was the better out of the two for various reasons. But still, um, it's still the Last Airbender. After the Last Airbender is still so good. It's so iconic. It's so well done. Um, 1 second. So yeah, it's just I just like it. It the show in general. So like it's not like I grew up with just the movie. I've only seen the movie like maybe 8 times total, and maybe even less, like maybe five. Um, but yeah, I really, really like it. It's not that bad. It's not the worst movie, but it's not the best. It's just a fun, a decent, okay movie. So that's my overall thoughts on it. It's overrated. Oh, sorry, it's overhated. Um, and it's just a good, decent time. They do a lot right. They do a lot wrong, but it's not the end of everything. You know, it's a decent movie. It's a decent time. But what is my exact reactions, or not reaction, but experience with the movie? Well, again, the show means a lot to me. It's something I'm very close with. Again, not as close as other things, but still, one of the shows I'm closest with. And I remember that when the movie was announced, I was so excited. I basically, like at the time, started doing a movie blog. It doesn't exist anymore, but I do remember posting a lot about it. Well, me and one of my best friends, we both had our own movie blogs, and he was talking a lot about Avatar because I think he's a bigger fan of Avatar than I am. Specifically, the Last Airbender, not the blue people. Um, yeah, really, it gets confusing when you're a fan of both, or you're trying to talk to someone about, and you just say, "Oh yeah, I really love Avatar," and you're like, "Oh yeah, me too." Aang and Korra, they're pretty cool. It's like, no, I'm talking about the blue people, or then the other way around. So it's tricky like that. Um, I actually heard that the creators of the show for The Last Airbender wanted to just call it simply Avatar, but James Cameron, I guess, already had the name trademarked since like the 90s for Avatar, because he's been working on Avatar since like the 80s basically, or even longer, because he did sketches of it even when he was in high school. So it's like literally James, like Blue People Avatar is literally James Cameron's like biggest creation ever, because it's something he thought about ever since he was in high school. Um, but yeah, so the Last Airbender Avatar though. So yeah, me and my friends were posting a lot on our blogs about the movie and looking up the production designs, talking about things, and for me it was I was mostly talking about that because that was the movie I was finding the most production information on. But I also posted about a couple other things as well, a couple other movies as well. Um, but yeah, unfortunately that blog is gone. So I remember that and just like being so excited for it. I saw the trailer. There was so much trailers. They marketed this movie so much. Um, and it was just pretty cool to see that too. But then I remember going into the theater, and I think my mom went with me and somebody else. I don't really remember. And I'm watching it, and like I said, there are moments where it just feels really dull and lifeless. Where honestly, even I was just like, okay, this is just kind of boring or bland. Like something is missing here. It's like missing its heart or something. And again, I talked about this earlier, but still. Um, and then there was a few moments where I'm like, my mom knows nothing about this. Like, yeah, she's seen a few episodes, or well, she wouldn't actually sit down and watch the episodes, but like she'll, watch, like come into the room and I'm watching it or something like that. And she'll just quickly see it and then leave. But um, yeah, so she doesn't know anything about the show really, and um, I'm just remembering now. I think it was either for one Christmas or one of my birthdays where I had asked my older brother and his well, he's not with her anymore, but when he was with her, his girlfriend at the time, um, for the video game for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the first game that they released, and I played that a lot on the PS2. I thought it was really fun, but then at the same time, that also kind of felt lifeless, so I kind of didn't like the game too much. I remember that. I was just a little upset with it. But yeah, so there was some things like that with the movie where I felt a bit disappointed in. And I'm just looking at my mom and I'm just like, what is she like? She's seeing people bending all these things, and some of it just looks really weird. I'm referencing specifically that earth bending scene. And she's probably thinking like, what am I doing here? What is this? Like, why did I come watch this movie? And that was really one of the few times I thought that my mom kind of had that reaction, just because she just seemed like when I was talking with her after the movie, she was just like, like she didn't really want to talk about it too much. Again, this is one of the few times where that has happened, where I watch a movie and she's just like with it. Um, so yeah, that so yeah, I guess that she didn't really like it at all. So it was definitely something that was made for fans of the show, but then they took out a lot of the things that really called to those fans. And unless you were like how I was with it, where I noticed all of these things that I talked about for the past hour, that really made me like the movie in the way it is. Um, unless you saw it like that, you probably hated the movie. And they try to put in so much information, but it's all really forced and random, like I explained earlier. So if you're not familiar with the show, you're just like, okay, so okay, like I think I understand it, but why is it going like? Why are I don't know why they're doing it though? Like, what makes them be able to control this? Like it's things like that. It's one of those moments where it's just like they explain things, but they don't explain things to the people who don't know it. But then they try to, and it just comes off as being like messy in the explanation. Um, so it's definitely something that is hard to get someone to watch, but again, it's not a bad time if you sit down and you really just analyze it and see, really realize how these characters are in the situation they're in and everything else about it. You really do see, yeah, no, it works. It strangely works. It's not working in a great way, but it's not working in a bad way either. It just works. It's decent. That's what I'm saying. It's fine. It's okay. Um, and yeah, I just really, really, really like it in general. Again, it's not something I put on all the time. I'll watch it every now and then if I have to. Um, but every time I tell someone, oh, I like the movie, it's not that bad. I'm not saying I love the movie or it's one of the best movies ever. No, I'm just saying like I like it. Doesn't do any harm. It's not too so bad. There's some care in it. There's some butchery in it, but it works. You know. So I really, really like it. I think in the sense of what it is, because compared to the show, it is not good. But in the sense of what it is, I like it. And I'm able to enjoy it ever since I first saw it, even though there are moments where I feel like, okay, this is a bit bland and dull. But then there are moments where like I'm loving this. This is awesome. So yeah, it's a bit confusing and conflicting, but it works either way. Um, but I'm just now running out of memory again. I'll be right back to just tell my thoughts on what I expect the live action show to be, because it kind of connects with this as well. All right, so now we're in the last part of this long review. So as you guys can see, this is basically me defending The Last Airbender. So this is the second installment in my defending series, where I talk about movies that I like that everyone hates. The first one for that is Dark Phoenix, X-Men Dark Phoenix. And again, this wasn't supposed to be the second one. Something else was supposed to be the second one. I don't want to say what that is right now. But it's been a very long time since I made that first one, and I never got around to making that second one, even though I really want to. So I'm doing this one now because of the show coming out. So the link for my defending playlist is in the description, where you can see X-Men Dark Phoenix with me defending it there. So this now leads into my thoughts on the show, the live action show. I remember it being announced. I was working at a pizzeria at the time, and then this friend of mine that was working there, I met him at the pizzeria. He was like a little bit of like an older brother to me. He was just really cool overall. He was definitely older, probably like 6 years older, something like that. I don't know. But he was really cool. He really liked the show too. And I remember like talking with him and like seeing the announcement for that Netflix bought the rights, and then that initial picture that they put of Appa. So I've been waiting on this for a very long time, just like with the movie. Um, so it is something that I'm very, very, very excited for. I saw that teaser trailer. I saw the pictures of all the cast in their costume. I saw the first actual trailer, but I did not see the second trailer because I feel like it's gonna spoil way too much. But point is, I'm kind of mixed with this. I know that the original creators were involved with the show, and then they left due to creative differences, and a lot of people are upset about that. And honestly, I don't really care. I don't really mind because I'm sure that they're still gonna do a good job some way. I mean, you guys just watched an hour and however many minutes of me trying to defend the movie, which everybody hates, um, except for me. But yeah, so I'm sure that there's gonna be a lot in it that I like. However, the problem here is the fact that there's been a lot of controversy here. And the biggest controversy is obviously sexism. Is everyone's saying like, oh, he's not gonna have it? Well, I mean, the movie he didn't have it either, and it wasn't a big deal. But yes, it's part of his whole character development. But they never said that he's not gonna have it. They said that it's toned down, so it's still gonna be there. Just I think people are being super critical about that being toned down because they're acting as if it's not going to be in there at all. His whole development is gone. It's not. It's there. It's just less. So it's not a big issue. Um, Now the second thing also is that I forgot one of the other, like, there was like three things that people were complaining about. Um, I can't remember what that second one is, but the third one I'm gonna leave for a minute. Honestly, I think that everyone's costumes looks great. It definitely looks really realistic. It definitely seems pretty show accurate, especially Aang's costume. However, I kind of prefer the direction they went with the costume for Aang in the movie. Mostly just because of the colors. I feel like that, at least from the pictures, the costume that they went with Aang for this movie seems way too cosplay, and like not even like good cosplay, like a realistic cosplay. It's just more like vibrant, trying to be 100% accurate to the show cosplay, but again without giving it wear or dirtying it up a little bit. It looks way too clean. That's what I'm trying to say by looking exactly like the cartoon, whereas everything else from the costumes we've seen looks like it's been worn, looks like it's been toned down or battered a little bit. But for Aang's costume, it's way too clean, way too vibrant, and it's like, couldn't you guys just darken it a little bit or made it seem like it's more worn? Again, that's just from the pictures I've seen. I did not watch, other than that first trailer, I did not watch, right, not the teaser trailer, the actual trailer. I did not watch the second trailer. Haven't really been seeing any clips. I'm sure it's probably gonna look better on camera, like in movement, rather than just a picture. So we'll see. Also, the tattoos. I'm kind of on Aang's tattoos for this one because it seems like it's just blue, and it's like, why did it? Why? Like the movie had such a really good natural way. All they needed to do was make it bluer. And at the same time, though, that's what they did. And I'm like, huh? So what do you mean that's what you also put the little tiny details, but then you covered it with just this like paste of blue? So like you didn't need to cover the whole thing with blue. Just like make the designs stick out more by making the lines for them a brighter shade of blue, which again is what the movie should have done. Instead they went with a very muted, dull, almost gray blue. um but yeah, no, for the the show, they gave it a nice vibrant blue, but then they kind of just colored everything, and then just the designs inside of the arrowhead is a little bit of a darker shade, but you can barely notice the designs. So I'm just like, okay, you guys had a really good idea there, which is something that the movie should have done, but like, why did you cover that cool design? So they basically took elements from the movie, and this is something that I wanted to say. The movie seems to have been some kind of an influence on the show, because clearly the whole tattoo thing is something that is, like, yeah, it just makes sense. It's like, why would the live action show, sorry for hitting my tripod, why would the live action show go out of their way to put intricate designs on the tattoo and then cover it up, but still let it be there? Because that's not how it was in the show. And if the costume is like that, so they must have been influenced by something to put the intricate designs in. And everyone liked the intricate design, or most people liked the intricate designs of the movie tattoo. So somebody must have been influenced by that. Somebody must have seen that movie and put that influence there. Also, in terms of the tone, because the tone, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of lighthearted moments, but it does seem like they are going to have that serious tone that the movie also had. So again, it really seems like the movie is kind of like a foundation for what the show is going to be in some aspect, the good aspects of it. And a lot of people, though, are basically complaining about that for the show as well. They're saying it's basically Game of Thrones. I mean, for me, I think Game of Thrones kind of sucks. But they're basically saying it's like Game of Thrones, and they're trying to market it to be like gritty and adult and not have the fun of it. I'm like, no, I'm sure that the show is gonna have the fun moments as well. But yeah, they have to focus on the serious moments, not because it's live action, but because this is an actual serious dark story. Like, literally, the movie captured the hardness of it so well. And so yeah, that's the thing, and if they want a more lighter hearted thing, then just watch the original show. If you want it to be focusing on the other elements a little bit more that the show didn't touch on, then you can see either the movie or the live action show. So I don't know, that's where I'm going with that. I don't know how the betting is gonna be, but I'm curious for that. And at the same time, also, whoever, I don't know his name, but whoever they picked to play the Fire Lord in the live action show, that dude is the Fire Lord. Like, he is literally, like, it's just him. He's a Fire Lord. Like, he looks exactly like him. Again, the people that they picked, for the most part, I love the people that they picked. They look like them. It looks great. I'm excited for it. But then we get into my biggest worry. Again, this is I don't remember the second thing that people are complaining about, that the show is having criticism in regards to, because again, I said one was Sokka's sexism, and then there was one that I can't remember right now, but then there was the third one. Now this third one is what I'm worried about, because just like in the movie, they switched the threat of the comet. Apparently, the comet is not even going to be a threat in the show, from what I read. And that upsets me and it worries me. It's like, so the comet is not going to be a threat. So, what is going to be the threat here? Like, yes, you gotta stop the Fire Lord. That's already a threat anyway. Aang's gotta master the elements, sure. But it's like, what is the time pressure? Because the whole time pressure was the comet. And basically, they said that they're also doing what the movie is doing, or what the movie did, which is make the comet come more than a year from now. Okay, so again, another influence from it, and again, it makes sense so that the characters can age up a little bit, and not feel weird. because in the show it takes like the entire original The Last Airbender takes place over just 1 year. So yeah, in animation that works, but in live action, especially since some of the actors are still growing, it makes sense to spread it out. So I don't really think it's influenced in the movie because of that, of the comic. I just think it's mostly just because the movie had the same idea, whereas like, yeah, by the time we actually film all of this, they're probably already gonna be past puberty. So we might as well just make this, take a little longer anyway. So they kind of had the same idea, but that the tattoo stuff, no, that has to be from the movie. Um, but yeah, so I'm worried that the issue here is that the comet is not going to be a threat. They're not going to be worried about the comet. So I'm just curious to see what they're going to be doing. That's going to be the big motivation to try to stop the Fire Lord as soon as possible. But yeah, guys, I'm excited for this live action show. Again, there's that other complaint that I can't remember right now, but it honestly, like every time I talk with someone about the show, I forget about that complaint because honestly, for me, it's not even like a big issue. It's just like the Sokka sexism thing. Like it's there, but it's not. It's not that it's not there. It's gonna be there. So I don't think it's that much of a trouble. Whatever that second one was, again, is the least stressful or the least like worried thing. It's just people being overly panicked about the show, and that's fine. It's a show that means a lot to me and to so many people, and a lot of people wanted it to be doing justice. I wanted to do justice too, and I'm sure it's going to in its own way. I just think that people need to calm down because the show is going to have its faults. It's not going to be as it is with the original show, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. There's going to be a lot of cool things with it. Just enjoy it, It's not like they butchered it. They really went out of the way to make sure it's as close as it can be with whatever production designs they decide to go with to the original show. And yeah, the original showrunners, or the series creators left, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be bad. So just enjoy the show, I am worried about a few things, like I said, but I think it's going to be a good time. So let me know what you guys think. It's just a few days from now. I'm super excited. Let me know what you think about the movie and what you guys thought about this review. This review is almost as long as the movie, so whatever. But I still recommend you watch the movie again with a new eyes and new understanding of things, because the movie is not as horrible as people make it out to be, or maybe it's not even as horrible as you thought it was or that you remember it as. Just take a breath and understand the direction that they went in, and that a lot of it is still true to how the source material was. But alright guys, I've talked a lot. It is now almost 3 a.m. I'm tired. I got a lot to do tomorrow, so I gotta rest. I still have to finish a video review for something right now that I'm going to be releasing in a few days after this video. I think I'll probably release that on the 23rd or the 24th of February, but I gotta work on that now. So thankfully tomorrow's a day off. Gonna try to get this other video done as quickly as possible, but please follow me on Twitter. I have a big announcement coming up very soon, and I'm just so excited for this thing that I'm about to announce. It's something I've been working on for a very long time, and it really just means a lot to me because it's basically the purpose of what this channel is. All of these unboxings, these reviews, and video game stuff, it's all things that is important to the channel because it's all things that I'm passionate about, because it's also involving the arts around those things. But this is something a little bit more personal. This channel, like all of these videos, are the in-between stuff for bigger things that I'm working on. and one of the biggest things I'm about to announce pretty soon. So I hope you guys watch that. It's not very long, but it will mean a lot. So just follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is gonna be in the description below, and yeah, pretty soon I'm gonna start announcing and posting more about it. So I'm really excited. I've got a couple other Xenoblade videos as well. Those are part of my other projects, part of my bigger things that this channel is for, not just Xenoblade, but like essays on things that I'm passionate about that involves the arts. And one of those Xenoblade things is pretty big. I'm still writing that one, but I got two that is written. I'm editing one right now, so that should be out hopefully soon. But yeah, that was basically my update for everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated show, the live action movie, and now the live action show. So let me know what you guys think. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.